Like, a lot of people don't know, Diddy turned me down. I was 12 years old. Like,
what do you think? You're like, am I not good enough? Because P. Diddy just told me, like, nah.
Of course. I'm definitely, I was in the elevator like, ah, man, this might be it for me. You know, because as a kid, when you're a kid, you think anything that's, it's over.
Y'all, Chris Brown has finally opened up about something that's been haunting him for years. He claims that Diddy tried to make a move on him when he was younger, and when he refused, everything in his life would downhill from there. So how did Did's actions impact Chris Brown's life, and how is all this connected to Chris's infamous downfall, including his relationship with Rihanna? Let's dive in, because this story is wild. As you probably know, Chris Brown's career started early, but behind the scenes, there was way more going on, and apparently one of the people pulling the strings was none other than Diddy. But here's the kicker: Diddy was helping Chris out of the goodness of his heart. Let him tell it, he was only when his debut album dropped. But his first interactions with the industry go back even further. Chris even admitted in an interview that he was just 12 years old when he tried to get signed by Diddy. But after meeting him, Diddy turned him down. That rejection hit Chris hard. He even cried in the elevator after the meeting. But here's the thing: Chris said that Diddy's rejection was what fueled his drive to succeed. He went back to the studio and worked even harder, determined to prove himself.
A month or maybe like a little bit after that VMA performance, I just broke it to her. I said, hey, I want to marry you, but I want to be real with you. I want to be honest with you and tell you, everything. This is what it is. Before we were together.
But in hindsight, it seems like that rejection was almost a blessing in disguise. After all, we've seen what happens to artists like Usher and Justin Bieber, who got too close to Diddy. Chris may have dodged a bullet even back then, but it didn't stop Diddy from trying to control his life later on. But to make things worse, Jaguar Wright, a former industry insider, has backed up these claims, saying it was well known that Diddy allegedly liked young boys. Chris wasn't the only one. Other groups like B5 were also allegedly targeted by Diddy in their early days. But Chris, being smart and wary, even as a young child, turned him down. Turning down Diddy came with the price. Though allegedly Chris wasn't signed by Diddy. But that didn't stop Diddy from trying to keep an eye on him. The fact that Chris refused Diddy's advances might explain why his career later took such a hit. Now, Jaguar Wright claims that Diddy has a history of ruining people who don't play by his rules. And after Chris turned him down, things got messy fast. When Chris finally got his big break with Def Jam and Jive Records, Diddy was lurking around in the background. And as Chris rose to fame, Diddy's influence remained strong. Rumors circulated that Chris eventually gave in to Diddy when he got older and attended some of Diddy's infamous parties. One of the most notorious moments in Chris Brown's career, of course, is the 2009 manhandling of Rihanna. But that's not all. Chris has tried to explain what happened that night in multiple interviews, shedding light on his side of the story. I'm not ever trying to put my hands on any female like me. I felt like a monster, but according to Chris, their relationship had turned toxic long before that infamous night. It was filled with mutual arguments and even physical fights. He admitted that both he and Rihanna were caught in a destructive cycle of silence, which came to a head during Clive Davis's Preg Grammy party. Now, things started to go down south at the party. But to make matters worse, after a night of heavy drinking, the situation escalated when someone from Chris's past unexpectedly showed up, making Rihanna furious. However, the real drama kicked off when they left the party. Now, Chris tried to calm things down by handing Rihanna his phone to show he wasn't hiding anything. But let him tell it, the message from another woman popped up and it all exploded.
Night at that Clive Davis party, that I made sure the person that I was involved with before, I said, hey, you can't come around to these places. And the person comes right to the table and say, hey, what's up, y'all? And I already know it's an issue, so I say, hey, cool. And I keep it, and they keep it moving and leave. I look over at Rihanna and she's bawling, she's just crying. In the middle of the ceremony about to start, she's just crying. And I'm like, yo, please, babe, don't do this. Don't do this in here. Like I didn't know, I promise, I swear to God, I didn't know.
The argument turned physical. And to make things even worse, both Chris and Rihanna started hitting each other. Chris admitted to striking her, which caused her lip to bleed. He recalls being shocked when he saw the injury, realizing how serious things had gotten. But that wasn't the end of it. In her anger, Rihanna threw Chris's car keys out the window, and Chris scrambled to find them. And Rihanna began begging for help, claiming Chris was trying to kill her. At that moment, Chris says he was in full panic mode, knowing they could both face huge consequences even. Now, years later, Chris has said that that night haunts him. The situation mirrors the Diddy he witnessed growing up, something he swore he would never become. But to make it worse, becoming the very person he feared most left him with deep regret and a burden that he still carries to this day. But here's where things take an even darker turn after Chris and Rihanna's incident. Diddy invited Chris to one of his parties, which raised a lot of eyebrows. Diddy defended his actions on The Ellen Show, saying he had the right to invite whoever he wanted to in his house. But industry insiders claimed there was more to it allegedly. Diddy had some hold over Chris, which is why he kept showing up to support him, even when the rest of the world had canceled him.
You clearly have a lot of people going, why would you do that? Why would you give Chris, a guy who hit a girl, and he's jet skiing around in your, I don't understand. Because, I mean, listen, I was a huge fan of Chris's. I love Chris, his music, he's a talented guy, but to hit a girl.
Yeah, because I know both of them, and it's my house. And I'm allowed to give my house to whoever I want to give my house to. That's number one. Number two is that I'm the type of person that I don't cast a stone or cast a judgment on anybody. And so if a friend or friends ask me for a favor, then I'm gonna be there for a favor.
It's also been rumored that Diddy played a role in Chris and Rihanna's toxic relationship itself. Remember, Diddy and Jay-Z were best friends, and Jay-Z signed Rihanna to Def Jam. And according to Jaguar Wright, both Diddy and Jay-Z allegedly introduced Rihanna to the dark world of parties and power plays, which Chris got dragged into as well. But fast forward to now, we've seen the old footage of Chris being dragged into a bed at one of Diddy's parties. In the video, Diddy is seen pulling Chris into a situation that looks very suspicious, and to add to that, Chris is wearing a camouflaged outfit. He went to blend into the surrounding and not be seen by Diddy. It shows that this wasn't just some wild party, it was part of the freak-offs that Diddy was notorious for. I'm that cool, I'm trying to be. Well, Beyoncé even supported Rihanna publicly during this time. But the fact that Diddy was involved raises a lot of questions about who was really pulling the strings.
In that mess with Chris Brown, how do you feel about that whole thing?
Well, I think she's doing a lot better. She is such a very talented woman and very smart. And I think it's really important in those times of need that people give people their privacy. So all you can do is pray.
It's also been rumored that Diddy played a role in Chris and Rihanna's toxic relationship itself. Remember, Diddy and Jay-Z were best friends, and Jay-Z signed Rihanna to Def Jam. And according to Jaguar Wright, both Diddy and Jay-Z allegedly introduced Rihanna to the dark world of parties and power plays, which Chris got dragged into as well. But fast forward to now, we've seen the old footage of Chris being dragged into a bed at one of Diddy's parties. In the video, Diddy is seen pulling Chris into a situation that looks very suspicious, and to add to that, Chris is wearing a camouflaged outfit. He went to blend into the surrounding and not be seen by Diddy. It shows that this wasn't just some wild party, it was part of the freak-offs that Diddy was notorious for. I'm that cool, I'm trying to be. Well, Beyoncé even supported Rihanna publicly during this time. But the fact that Diddy was involved raises a lot of questions about who was really pulling the strings.